drama every time you do something. No peace, nowhere. You're not looking at the spirit realm. In the natural, you look like a pretty cool brother. You're a pretty cool sister. But you can't get along with nobody. And every relationship, even the good ones that should have turned out into something good, can't turn out good. Because you're not aware of the spirit realm.
Life experiences in childhood that are lost in time and then further protected by shame and by secrecy and by social taboos against inquiry into certain realms of human experience, that those life experiences play out powerfully and proportionately a half century later in terms of emotional state, in terms of biomedical disease, in terms of life expectancy.
Oftentimes after sexual abuse, we get stuck in that moment where basically time stopped for us, where we couldn't breathe, think. We didn't even realize what was happening to us till after it has changed our lives. We go along existing because where has that foundation been made for us to tell it? You know, you get that tell-a-tale mentality, and who wants to be that? I mean, did the abuse really do anything? I seem to be okay. Life has continued, right?
You ready?
Yes.
And how old are you?
Shay Michelle, and I'm 35 years old. Dallas, Texas, born and raised.
And what kind of kid were you growing up?
It's hard to say. I was kind of quiet but promiscuous due to the things went on in my life, but then also like intelligent and smart as well. So I was still able to balance and keep a good head on my shoulder, but shy, slick, sneaky, but promiscuous at the same time, but smart also. So.
Okay. So how many times over your lifespan had you been sexually abused?
I can't even count the many times because, at some point it causes a block. It's a blur. So I know numerous of times, I can't even count, but numerous of times at night I'm always was taken to this back room and then molested. So it's I can't even count.
So was your abuse by females, males, or both?
Male. Well, time stopped for me when I was at the tender age of 7 years old. As far as counting how many times, I'm really not sure. It's like over a numerous amount of times, and it started at 7 years old. I can remember maybe it stopping like maybe around 8 or 9, but like I said, I can't even count how many times that I've been abused because I can't remember. I just try to, sometimes in life you try to black out those times or the bad times, the traumatic times. So
we survived because it figured out what to do if we blow a fuse. And the brain knows what to do if it believes it will destruct. It takes memories and it moves them offline so that we don't remember, so we don't have to deal with what the brain says is too much for us. It moves it somewhere else. So, and the result of that is disassociation, which means it's invisible. It's not accessible. But the nature of disassociated trauma is it's still around. It's still in the background. It plays out in our relationship choices, our human magnet syndrome urges.
From here on, I mean, I can honestly say my healing process started maybe like 21 years later, and like maybe at the age of 27. At that age, I can somewhat remember. I remember me being waking up out my sleep, and mind you that it was my mom's boyfriend brother. So I remember being waking up out of my sleep numerous times a night, but this particular night, waking up out of my sleep, pulled into the darkness to another room, and then having my pants pulled down and just taken advantage of. And at that point, I mean, I'm not knowing what I'm doing. I'm just laying there and just, you know, letting him have his way. And so it's just, from that point on, it just repeatedly happened over and over again, like every other night, because we were living with them at the time. My mom, with the boyfriend, living with the whole house. So like it was like maybe 15 people in one house, like in the country. So it's like if I had to choose to live with my father at that time, I would have voiced that. And even though I was with my mom, like living with my mom at the time, like when I let my dad know, oh, he was livid, and it was like a whole court case like thing that they wanted to pursue, but I was afraid to like that I'm gonna get in trouble because if I was to speak on this matter. So it was hard, like dealing with that.
My name is Britannia Sellers, and I'm 37 years old. I was born and raised in Monroe, Louisiana. While I was a regular little kid, I was always playing with my dolls, and I was the only girl, so I didn't really have any, girls to play with. So it was just me and my brothers. Sometimes I would often just stay to myself in my room and just play with my dolls. So I was a quiet little kid. Didn't give people too much trouble.
So, how many times over your lifespan had you been sexually abused?
Wow, that is a good question. I would say probably around 3 to 4, 5 at the max from what I can remember. I would say both. Once was a cousin, a girl cousin, and the rest were guys. Wow, so I would say around 7. That was the time that I could remember, the first memory that I had of being touched inappropriately. My mom used to go party a lot. She was a young mom, and she wanted to hang out and do her thing. And I understand. Now that I'm an adult, I understand now. So she would kind of leave us over people's house, when she would go out. So we would stay sometimes at her boyfriend's mother's house, or we would stay over people we would consider family members, but they weren't like blood related. We would stay over there sometimes, oftentimes like spending the night up to the weekend. So the first time I can remember being touched inappropriately, of course, I was a little kid. I didn't know that it was wrong. I didn't know that wasn't supposed to happen. The guy, I can remember my mom going out to the club with her boyfriend, and she leaving us over her boyfriend's mother's house, and one of his brothers, began touching me. And he would like literally wait till everybody was asleep. He wouldn't do it when everybody was present, of course. He would wait till we all were sleeping. We were just little kids. We'll, sleep head to foot. Everybody pile up on one bed. You got like 5 to 7 kids on one bed, I can remember him coming in there and like literally touching me in my private area. And then it got to the point where he started to go a little further, and he would like pull my pants, my shorts down, on my pants down, and my underwear, and he will rub his private against my private. So yeah, I was just like, after a while, I just didn't even think that anything was wrong with that, because it would happen every time, I would go over there. So I didn't think nothing was wrong with what he was doing. I mean, of course, I was like, well, what's going on here? But I didn't think anything was wrong. Of course, he would be like, don't tell anybody, don't tell your mama. You're going to get in trouble, things of that nature. So that was the first memory that I can remember at the age of 7 being touched inappropriately.
Well, my truth is the fact that coach had me in a room sucking each other's. My truth is that, hold on, Judy, hold on. I'm talking about the principle, and you know what I'm talking about because you're a God-fearing woman. You know what spiritual warfare we're fighting.
Yes. My name is Kisharik McCowan, and I'm 32. I was born in Dallas, Texas, and I was raised in Dallas as well. The kind of kid I was growing up, I was shy. I played outside a lot, basketball, football. We attend church a lot, so I was very active in church. I sung in the choir. I was an usher. I played the drums. I sang. So I was a pretty active kid. My dad owned a car wash business, so I worked on the weekends a lot doing car washing and stuff like that. Man, I started out probably about 6 in church singing and stuff. And then my dad got a car washing business probably around 10. And I did that from like 10 to 16. So in my life, I've been sexually abused by one person, but it happened for many years. So unfortunately, the person that abused me was male. So time stopped for me when I was about, I guess, 5. Growing up, we spent a lot of times with family members, cousins, and we played a lot of games and stuff like that. And I can remember a particular time where me and an older cousin, we were playing at my aunt's house, and we was playing hide go seek, and then like they would cut all the lights off, and so I noticed something different when we were playing. It wasn't like we would play at my other cousin's house. And so then I can remember on that night, on my way home that night, I told my dad, I was like, hey, something happened or whatever. And, I just feel uncomfortable about it. And so then he mentioned it to my aunt, and then she was just like, oh, that's how they play, because this person was a football player. And I was like, my dad was like, well, maybe, they were just being a little rough or whatever the case may be. But I was just like, well, no, because he was throwing me on top of my brother, and it didn't seem right. So then I can remember a while we didn't go over there for a couple of years or so. So we started going back around my family, and then things would just happen, like, I would get touched in a certain way and stuff like that. And like growing up in church, I knew that this was wrong, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm a kid, so I'm not like, well, not saying I'm interested, but as a kid, you don't know, you just like, okay, well, maybe this is something to try or whatever the case may be. So then, it happened a lot, but I can remember 2 particular times that stuck with me forever. We was I spent the night so this cousin got out of jail for having an entanglement with someone else, and that was underage. And so they got out of prison, and I remember that they threw like a party. So we was at a pool party. So they asked my dad, can I spend the night? So I spent the night. And unfortunately, when I spent the night, we slept in the living room. And then I could remember this person being on the phone. And I was on the couch, and they were on the couch bed. So they asked me to get in the bed with them. So I got in the bed with them. And then, it began. And so at that time, I was like, wow. So I went inside of the bathroom, and I just was like, stayed in there for quite a while. And they was like knocking on the door, like, are you okay? Are you okay? But I wasn't okay. And so I remember going home, and for like 2 days, I didn't want to do anything. Like I laid in the bed, like I didn't absolutely want to do anything.
When children are abused, when they are sexually abused, they tend to act out. And literally what that means is their behavior will show what's gone on for them. And it's a sort of attempt, it's a sort of psycho-emotional way that human beings have of trying to digest, trying to integrate. I give the example that my children, when they were little and they got trotted off to swimming lessons, of course that was kind of scary, but what they would do before and after the first few lessons is they would practice jumping off the bed, because then they were jumping off the high dive and they were confronting their fears. They were acting out their fears that way. Well, jumping off the bed to practice jumping off the high dive, which they were scared of, because of course that's going to happen to you on your first swimming lesson, is a lot different than a child who has been sexualized and they're acting that out. So it's a disintegration.
Because it had went farther than it was before. At first I was getting touched and rubbed and stuff like that, bumped up against, but this time, I actually saw this person naked. They saw me naked, and it was just it didn't stick well with me, because like I said, I grew up in church, so I knew that this was absolutely wrong, that God would be displeased of what not only I did, but especially what they did. So then I turned 14, and when I was 14, this person was maybe 20 something. And it was my 14th birthday. I'll never shall forget. I had on some red and white Reeboks. I had on a white jumper suit that was Tommy Hilfiger, and I had on a red shirt under it. And I remember. And so I was at my dad's house, and he was supposed to commute me from my dad's house to my mom's house. But in between that, he took me to my aunt's house where no one was. And so I can remember he was asking me, he was in the room and stuff like that. And I was wondering, why am I here? Because I'm supposed to just go home. So he called me in the room. I went in and he said, get naked. So I'll never forget. I took off all my clothes. And then right before it happened, I was like, I have something to tell you. And he was like, what? And I was like, I don't want to do this with you anymore, but if you find somebody else, I'll do it with them. And then he was like, what? And then so we finished, and then I was like, dang. So I went home feeling bad. But after that day, he respected that. But what he did was he started saying, well, I have this girl that I'm going to hook you up with. But unfortunately, my flesh was already hungry for the wrong thing. So he hooked me up with this girl, and so come to find out, we tried to date or whatever the case may be, but I didn't know how to interact with her because I was so used to doing what he already had taught me to do. And so, but in my mind, I was like, dang, I wish I was like other males around me, because I grew up in a really tough neighborhood. And so, I was like, I wish I was more like them. They had girlfriends and this and that. They would tell their stories about their first time, but, I can't tell them about my first time because, it's really something that I didn't want to do. So, after that, I tried with girls and stuff. Well, with the girl he tried, and it just didn't kind of work out because I felt kind of weird because, like I said, flesh was already, asking for, more of the other stuff. So, from 14 to 16, that's when I started sleeping with other men. And so I kept it a secret, but only 2 of my cousins knew about it. And I didn't tell them about the abuse because it was a family member, and I didn't want to, mention that it happened. But, thank God that, and I sad to say this, but thank God that my cousins had already told my aunt, because my dad was looking for an opportunity to talk to me. And he finally did. So like from 14 to 16, I was not only that I had to face being abused, but I started abusing myself because I knew that this was wrong, and I knew feeling bad about it, that, I'm not supposed to be doing this. God said that Adam and Eve and not, this and that, and I'm going to be punished for this. And so like every time I would, do something like that, I would feel bad about it. And so I never shall forget, when I was 16, I called myself dating someone, and my cousin would ride over with me to the bus to go visit the person. And so finally my cousin asked one day, this seems a little bit, y'all are too interested into each other. What's going on with that? So on the bus ride home, I told her, I said, hey, this or whatever. And she was like, wow, I wouldn't even knew, And she was like, I mean, by the way you talk, a lot of people say that, but I just never knew that you would come out. And I said, well, a lot of people have a light voice, you have Michael Jackson, you have Prince, but they sing really good, And I was like, maybe because of the way I sing. And that's what she said. She was just like, maybe it's the way that you sing and whoop de whoop. And I was like, well, well, anyways, it is what it is. I'm trying this out, and I was 16. I'm like, I think this is what I want to do. And so I was like, I think that I want to try, maybe dating men or something like that, to just try to fill that void that's there, that I really didn't want to do it, but I did it. And so maybe this is something I should do, since I want to do it. And then, so she, we on the ride home, she was just surprised. And, so, probably that next week, I was at school, and at that time we had church. They had the little church that we had. And so my dad texted me on it and was like, hey, right after school, I need you to come home. And I said, all right, cool, no problem. I went home, and when I got there, it was like a press conference. I had there was my dad, my grandmother, my two cousins, my brother, my stepmom, my uncle, my auntie. They were all sitting there waiting on me. So I walk in, and my dad was like, is there something you want to tell me? And I'm like, no, absolutely not. What do you mean? And he's like, is there something you want to tell me? And so he said, well, I want to ask you, are you gay? And I was like, why are you asking me this in front of all these people? And he was just like, are you? And so my cousin, the one that went with me, she was like, are you or are you not?
My name is Whitney Davis. I'm 33, born and raised in Dallas, Texas. Pleasant Grove, Dallas, Texas. What kind of kid was I? I would have to say I was a happy kid. I can't remember my childhood like that, but I think I was bubbly, I was curious, I was mischievous. I kind of was ahead of my time, but I think I was a pretty decent kid for the most part. I don't recall really giving my parents too much, being young, but that's something you would have to ask my parents. How many times over my life was I abused? I would have to say probably over 5 to like 7 times that I can possibly kind of remember. It was just sporadic, spontaneous moments. So I can't really say, when. It was a lot of uncomfortable touches, inappropriate touches. So, I would say all that goes hand in hand. So anywhere upward from, 5 to 7 to probably like 10 times over my lifetime of being 33 years old. The abuse was by both male and female. What is my story? Well, I would have to say I grew up happy. I grew up with siblings, cousins. I remember being young to where my mom would have parties, and everybody would be over, from aunts, uncles, to neighborhood, individuals or what have you. Like, our house was the spot. I remember seeing my sisters, my cousin, do like different like talent shows in the backyard, and all the neighborhood would be there. Like, I remember just being happy, not really struggling, if you will, I can probably remember like 1 to 2 times when our lights was off, and that's because it was raining and my mom couldn't get to go pay the bill or what have you. It wasn't as digital as it is now, to where you just call stuff in or you get online. It was like you had to go to the Kroger's or something like that. So I remember that. I remember just big Christmases, getting things that I wanted, not really wanting for anything. And the abuse first started for me. I can remember being probably about 5 or 6, And we had just moved into this town in Pleasant Grove, well, this street. From my recollection now, being older, hearing the stories, we actually had lived a street over. Okay, and so we just moved the street over into this to another house. And I remember our neighbors were boys, and they were probably, I know one of them was around my age, another one was fairly older than me, and I remember being called over, and they told me to lay down on this workout bench, and I did. I was 5 or 6 years old, I don't know, and I remember, one of the brothers getting on top of me. And I was just laying there because I didn't know, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what he was doing or whatever, And I remember my older sister riding up on her bike and was like, "Boy, get off my sister," And I was just like, yeah, because I didn't know, what was going on. But I know that actually spiraled into a series of situations between that neighbor and myself as time went on, as long as we stayed over there. It got real personal when it began to be relatives, and so I remember going over to a relative house, like you would every weekend. Mom is not working, and I'm not in school, so I would ask to go over these relatives' house. And I just remember one particular time going over there, and I mean, it's embedded because, when you deal with traumatic situations, it's embedded. You still remember the smells. You still remember how you feel. You still remember everything. I remember the clothes I had on, okay? And so I remember me and this other relative would play all the time or whatever. We were close. And we were sleeping in the living room, as we quite often do. She had a series of Mary-Kate and Ashley videos and different videos and things like that I didn't have accessible at my home. And so when I would go over, I would love to, watch these things. So we would just have a binge on these videos, and I think I was probably a little bit older now. I probably was like 7 or 8 around this time, or 9, if you will. I remember falling asleep on this relative. And I remember getting tapped by the sibling of this relative, and them telling me to come, to their room. At this present time, nobody else was there. His and this is a male. His parents were not there, so I didn't think nothing of it. He asked me if I wanted to see his Legos. He was big on Legos, building things to this nature, and so I did. I, went in. I was curious, and then he proceeded to turn off the light. Told me to be quiet, and then he proceeded to tell me to lay on the floor. And as I did, this was an older relative, and I was like, okay. We used to play games a lot back then, like cat scratch and all this stuff where you would have to lay on the floor, so I didn't really think much of it. And so I did, and he proceeded to molest me, to touch me inappropriately, to get on top of me and hunch me, if you will, grind me or what have you. And I just remember not knowing what to do. I was so uncomfortable. Even to this moment, it kind of makes me uncomfortable just, talking about it. But not for nothing, it was just like, now it was no penetration. None of my experiences have been, I can't say I've been raped or anything to that nature, fortunately, and thank God. But that was extremely uncomfortable, and that kind of just really spiraled my entire life, because from that point on, this particular relative continued up until the age I was 14 enough to talk to kind of, in a sense, fight back, if you will. He pursued me, like literally, like any opportunity he had to make advances towards me in regards to touch me inappropriately, in regards to say full out that he wanted a relationship with me, and I was just like, dude, like, we're related, like, ain't happening, and like, that's kind of sick. That stayed with me, and it stayed with me. It wasn't until a point in time that I actually was sitting around the house. And I want to say this was probably, I hadn't told anybody about this, but I remember sitting around with my older sisters, and I was sitting down and I was talking to them, and they were just chewing me out because I was being rather bad. I had, developed this attitude to me, because mind you, I've been going through all this abuse and nobody knew about it. I couldn't talk to anybody about it. Now, all these years of dealing with all this, I had the worst attitude. I was misbehaving. I was mischievous. Mind you, around this time, I had already given away my virginity. Like, it was just, dealt with having a series of different STDs and all of that. And so, yeah, I was out there real bad, but it was a root. It was a reason. That was surface. It was a reason why. And nobody took out the time to actually understand that behavior. But not for nothing, they were chewing me out about, I think I was into my mom or something like that. And they were just like, yeah, you hot, you fast, you grown, and blah, blah, blah. And I just spazzed out. I was like, F that, F y'all, F all of this. Y'all don't know what I've gone through. I've been molested. I've been touched on. I've been fondled. I just let it rip. And their mouths just dropped. Okay? Their mouths just dropped. Because in that moment, we had all had a commonality. They had been molested too. And 2 out of those sisters by the same person that was doing it to me.
Is that the truth about childhood sexual abuse or sexual assault at any age, the most common response is actually to be hypersexual. And so I just want to put that out there, that you are not in the minority, you're actually in the majority. So know that you're not alone. And I know a lot of you out there watching this video who haven't gone through this are thinking, isn't that like the opposite? Isn't that counterintuitive? Why would someone who was harmed sexually as a child or at some point in their life then turn around and be hypersexual? Why would they do that? Why would they hurt themselves with the very thing that hurt them in the beginning? And there are many reasons that we do it. The first is that it's a way to regain control, to take it back. Many of my clients have told me that they will be hypersexual. They'll put themselves in dangerous sexual situations because it's their way of saying, it's my body, I decide, I do what I want. And it's almost like they get to reverse the role. Instead of feeling like someone has control over them and can do whatever they want to them, and even them saying no isn't stopping it, they get to choose and they get to have as much sex as they want. The second reason many people become hypersexualized is validation. Imagine if we were sexually abused as children. We were raised in that environment. Through that time in our formative years, we were shown that maybe the only way we got one-on-one attention was with sex. Maybe the only time we were really told that we were loved was through sex. Maybe that's how we knew we were worthwhile and we were important and all of those things. Maybe that was something we were told while we were being sexually abused. So you can see how if that's what's happening in our formative years, even into our teens, we will associate love, support, validation with sex. Therefore, in order to get what we all need, right? We all need love, validation, and support. We will then turn to sex to fill that need. But the third reason that I know of in my experience is chemical dependency. And that sounds like we're talking about addiction, and we kind of are. Sex can release those feel-good hormones. You know how I've talked about different chemicals in our brain like dopamine and norepinephrine and all those things that swirl around and make us feel really good? Sex releases those. Therefore, if we've been hypersexualized, we're already maybe used to being abused and being sexualized for many nights, maybe every night growing up. When we get older, we still seek out that same feeling. And that's why when you talk about treatment for this, the next stage then is like dual treatment. We need to treat potentially the addiction and that like yearning for that feel good, that dopamine, that serotonin, that norepinephrine that gets released. We may seek that out. So we need to deal with the addiction, the sex addiction. And secondly, we have to heal from our trauma.
And then we had a conversation in which we came to discover that all 3 of us had been molested. All 3 of us had these experiences, that we all had kept secret and just was dealing with and suffering with, all these years, And so we found ourselves just really just seriously crying, and just, kind of, in a sense, understanding one another, And so after that moment, I think they looked at me a bit differently and kind of understood, but it didn't shift anything for me because I still was angry. I still was hurt. And so for years, I just stayed promiscuous. And by the age of 16, I got pregnant. Okay. Unfortunately, at the age of 17, he was stillborn. But that didn't stop. I was very promiscuous and very angry. It wasn't until, I want to say, to backtrack, I had went off to cheer camp, and I can't remember. We had a conversation there as girls there, and it tugged at my core. And so it went to where I got back from camp, and I just was in the car with my mom, and I told her what had happened for these years, and I told her who it was by, and she was livid. Okay, she was livid. And so she went to tell this person's parent, in particular this relative's mom, and the response to me wasn't strange. It was, oh, you know Whitney's fast. Are you sure? What? You know, and it was like, yeah, by now I am very hot. Yeah, but it's because your son, okay, opened Pandora's box, okay? And the thing is that you never know how you're going to respond, how you're going to respond at that age to such an adult act, okay? You have some people that become promiscuous. You have some people that, depending on what the circumstance is, and to be honest with you, like I said, it had happened both female and male, so it could have invoked some homosexuality tendencies out of me, because I mean, best I got touched by both, and so it plants seeds. It just kept going after that for me, until I found the Lord, to be quite frank and honest with you. Until I found the Lord, it just didn't stop. I continued to be promiscuous. I continued to put myself in some very damaging situations, to where, my body had to bear a lot of afflictions, a lot of diseases, a lot of calamity, because, I allowed this spirit that had been placed into me by these traumatic situations as youth. And it, don't call me a conspiracy theorist, but why do you think that it's such a thing about the youth? It's something that hatches. It's something that provokes. It's something that stirs up when you get them so young. Why do you think that you can instill a different language in a child when they're young? It's a sponge state that you are when you're a youth, when you're young. And so if you're teaching them habits, if you're provoking things that you're not mentally, physically ready to endure, you're dealing with a volcano,
In 1985, I first became interested in developmental life experiences in early childhood, really by accident. In the major obesity program we were running, a young woman came into the program. She was 28 years old and weighed 408 pounds, asked us if we could help her with her problem, and in 51 weeks took her from 408 to 132. And thought, well, my God, we've got this problem licked. This is going to be a world-famous department here. She maintained her weight at 132 for several weeks, and then in one 3-week period regained 37 pounds in 3 weeks, which I had not previously conceived as being physiologically possible. That was triggered by being sexually propositioned at work by a much older man, as she described him. And in short order, she was back over 400 pounds faster than she had lost the weight. I remember asking her why the extreme response. After initially claiming not to have any understanding of why the extreme response, ultimately she told me of a lengthy incest history with her grandfather from age 10 to age 21. Ultimately, it turned out that 55% of the people in our obesity program acknowledged a history of childhood sexual abuse. I mean, that obviously is not the only issue going on, but it was where we began. And as we went down that trail, then we discovered other forms of abuse, also growing up in massively dysfunctional households, etc. And the ACE study was really designed to see whether these things existed at all in a general population, and if so, how did they play out over time?
My mom used to take me, I used to take a bath with my mom all the time. And, you know, she would kind of like examine me, which as you should as a parent, you should always make sure you look over your children, make sure they don't have no cuts or bruises or anything like that. And she would like ask, one day she just asked me, and it was out of the blue. I was so shocked that she did. I was still 7 at the time. And she was like, has anybody touched you here? And she was pointing in my chest area, and I didn't say anything. She said, well, has anybody touched you there? Which was my private area, and I didn't say anything. And so she looked at me, and she was like, you know, you can tell mama anything. I was like, yeah. And she was like, so she hurried up and took me a bath, and she got me out, and she set me on the end of the couch. She was like, I want you to be honest with mama. Mama ain't gonna hurt you. Mama ain't gonna get mad at you. I just want you to tell me, has anybody touched you in those places? And I told her, yeah. And she wanted to know who, and I told her who, which was her boyfriend's brother. And I told her when it happened or whatever, whenever y'all would leave us over there or you would go out, that's when he would do that. And it was chaos after that. So you know, my mom went over to her boyfriend's mother's house, and her boyfriend tore the whole house up with the little boy. So he pretty much got beat down. So yeah, after that, my mom literally stopped going out. Like she stopped it completely. She didn't even, if she did go anywhere, she didn't. We pretty much at the time was staying at home by herself, if she had to go anywhere.
She's like became like a mother hawk now.
Yeah, she's like super overprotective.
So she didn't allow it to continue.
No, she did not. She did not.
So my cousin, she's like, are you or are you not? And I'm like, and then so I remember this day I started crying, and I was like, and my grandmother, she was just like, who did this to you? You know, why did you, chose to do this? Did this person do something to you? And then I looked at her, and I just really started crying. I was like, yes. And she was just started sharing stories about how that she would see stuff, and that she would notice in one particular time I was in the 5th grade, and my brother got really sick, and I had to live with him. And my grandmother caught this person picking me up in the middle of the night and taking me into a room, and she made them put me back on the couch. And so she remembered that, and I didn't think anybody knew about that. You know, she just started sharing stories about how that, that she knew. They called my aunt and they reported it, and just like, it was just crazy. So they called the police, and then they came out. And I remember we followed the police. We were following police somewhere else, and we followed them, and we ended up at my other aunt's house. My other cousin came in. We got in the car and we followed the police somewhere else, and then so when we got there, there were other cousins that were standing in the living room, and they had stories to share. And it was just mind blowing.
Same experience with the same person.
Yes. And so I I was shocked because I thought I was the only person that's quote unquote getting this special treatment or whatever. And it was a lot of us. And so I can remember we had to go to court and stuff like that. And it was my senior year that we went to court. And I didn't actually have to go to court and say anything, thank God.
I was absolutely changed after that experience. I was not the same. I was not the same bright, happy young girl. I can be honest with you. I sought after that sensation because, I mean, let's be honest, sex is supposed to be good. It's good. That's what the Bible says. Sex is good. You're supposed to love sex. You're supposed to enjoy that with your spouse, not with your relative, not with a stranger, and not when you're not ready, and not as a child, you know. And so that sensation that I was feeling was right, but it was wrong timing, and it was, you know, trying to get this, it was like a high. So one could say that I was addicted to sex at one point in time. Pornography played a part of it. Now I can get myself off. I don't need someone else. So this is great. It got real bad whenever I was old enough to stay by myself. I can buy my own stuff. I don't have mommy. I don't have nobody looking at my stuff. I can just do what I want to do by myself. And I got out there real bad in the world, real bad in the world, you know, messed up a lot of relationships, marriages, you know, and it was because of what happened to me in my past. I had no respect for nobody's relationship, no woman, no nothing. I wanted something, and I wanted to feel something. I wanted to get this sensation, and I was going to get it by any means necessary by anybody. And once I was done, that was it, you know. And it's a lot of things that I regret in my life now.
I don't have to be that tough and rough, but it's just the upbringing. But now, since, with the healing process, I'm like open arms to everybody, try to get that trust, that one trust. And hey, if you fail me this time, hey, I'm not going to deal with it. But I open arms with trust nowadays, and more open and submissive to people's feelings and to how I deal with people now. As I gotten older, maybe actually after I started my cycle, which was like at 11 and a half, 12 years old, I start wanting to date older guys and be sneaking off to like cutting school and everything, just acting that point of acting out and experimenting more. So it was at that point, like after 11 and a half, 12 years old, where I was kind of more promiscuous and let me be more open and like, let me see what's this about, like the real feeling, if you will.
Going forward, just thinking about it, I think it may have caused like a rift in between me and my mom, because it was almost like she felt like I opened myself up to something, or I don't know. It was almost like she didn't trust not only people around me, but me, period.
So you feel like you got a sense that you were blamed, like you did something wrong?
I feel like that in my 37 years self. I feel that's how it went. That's how it went. Yeah. Yeah. And of course, it happened a couple other times. We would go over cousin's house, and certain things would happen. Like we'll get in the closet. I'm thinking we playing hide go seek, and cousins will be in there, dry humping me. So yeah, that type of stuff.
Did you sexually abuse others from a result of your abuse as a child?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think it inadvertently made me an introvert. I didn't really like being around a lot of people because it was like, it made me fearful. Like, I don't trust anyone. Like, and I still, even as an adult, I have trust issues because that happened to me. I don't let my little daughter go anywhere or be around people without me because I'm like, it can happen to anybody. It happened to me. So I feel like I have become kind of overprotective of her. So, yeah, I never touched anyone. I never had the desire to touch anyone. I just was more so reserved and an introvert. It made me go in myself. Like I put myself in a bubble.
I have a passion for other kids, and so I watch out to see if they're being abused and watch out for signs. And thank God that I never ever even crossed my mind to repeat the same things that happened to me to someone else, because I have so much compassion about other children, even adults.
After those experiences, I even remember being younger and sexually abusing other young girls, or whoever I could. I was little, but people listened to me. Even like to this day, when I open my mouth, people listen. I have a commanding voice, and it's a God-given talent. But I used it very wrongly. I remember being young and having girls do different things to each other, guys do different things to girls, and me just sit back and watch, because it made me uncomfortable, but I wanted to see it. And so I would get off on, in a sense, get off on looking at other people do it, and it was like, oh, I'm big bad wolf because I'm making you do something. It's not happening to me anymore, but it's happening to you now. Not putting two together that this is bad. You're damaging these people.
There's been times where I would hear, negative comments about that I liked it, or I'm gay, or, I didn't say nothing because it's something I enjoyed. But I would, respond to these people and say things. I would say, hey, no, it didn't matter if I liked it or not. This person shouldn't have done this anyway because they were too old. Oh, they were older than me. Now, I can say if this person was around my age, then yes, I totally had the power to say no. And it was easy for me to say no because it's someone that I can, that's on the same level as I am. But for this person to be much older than me, it doesn't matter if the person liked it, they were comfortable about it, it doesn't matter. The issue is that, you know, being a minor and of sexually abused by an older person is not right at all. No matter if the child was, making passes at the adult, it's still not right.
Patterns and cycles of sin attempt to hinder us all. There are things that we have done for years and years that even when we feel we have overcome it, will tempt us to fall. James 1:14 says, but every man is tempted when he is what? Drawn away of what? Whose lust? His own. It's your own lust. That's why he puts it in you. That's why he wants you to do the ritual. That's why he wants you to play Dungeons and Dragons. That's why he wants you to do something to open yourself up to put this in you so you will be tempted by what's already in you. Crack is not in me. You smoke that all around me and it's just gonna stink and I'm gonna call you a crackhead. Amen? And some of you, same thing. It's just certain things, man, no, that's because it's not in you. But the person that's maybe a crack baby or grew up around crack or used to be on crack, that does a little something different to them. That's because it's their own lust. And so you are drawn away by what was put in you and enticed. The problem in most cases is that we do not understand spiritual warfare. Like, what are we talking about? Are we talking about the natural and not talking about the spiritual, but calling ourselves saved?
To those that say, maybe you wanted it, maybe you were hot, you fast.
And you know what? Coming up as a little girl, I bloomed, I blossomed really early. So I went from not having a chest to a C cup. I didn't even go through the training bra stage. Like, it was like, boom, you had no boobs before the summer, and the summer came, it was school time, and you had a full C cup. So, and I always had a full figure. So I was always accused of being fast. I was always accused of being, boys would look at me, oh, she gotta be easy. I was always accused of those things. So to deal with that, I just became even more of an introvert. I continuously went within myself. I use writing to help me, reading and writing. That would be my outlet, to voice my frustrations. Because I really felt like I couldn't talk to anyone about anything.
I didn't know what I wanted in the outfit at between the ages of 5 and 14. Those ages, you don't think about sex. Like you don't, you know what I'm saying? Your world is shocked when a boy says that you're ugly, or you know what I'm saying, or they don't circle yes on the yes and no on the little paper. My mind was not in sex at that age, but it did after I got exposed, because it made me discover a part of me that I didn't know that was there, and I wasn't supposed to know that was there until I got of age. You know what I'm saying? At least got of age, but biblically it's not until you're married, but at least when I'm of an age to be able to understand what my body is experiencing, and that was stripped away from me. And I can't. I began to be fast, and began to want it, if you will. But does that guarantee me the abuse that I, experienced because I was fast? Like, it's like we balance things out with things. Oh, well, what I'm saying, like in the latest, news that's going on nowadays with the whole, Meg the Stallion situation, and the rapper guy, whatever, that shot her. They try to say, well, it's new developments that Meg got up in his face, cursed him out. Does that warrant her getting shot? And see, that's no difference. We try to warrant the sexual abuse by people by saying, well, they were fast, so I guess they deserved what they got, basically. So at the age of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, that governs me, regardless if I was fast or whatever the case may be, to get sexually abused because, I was fast, I wanted it. So basically, he was giving me what I want. Doesn't make sense, doesn't make it right. And I don't have nothing to say for those people that think like that. Okay. So do you know what has become of your abuser to this day?
Oh, he's deceased. And I want to say it serves him right, but you suffer that much because, that long of life because of the abuse. Like, and it's not, I'm not just going to laugh at the fact that, but that's your karmic, your karma right there. So it serves him right. But I wish I had got the opportunity to confront him like as an adult. I really wish that.
Do you know if he abused any other people?
I'm not sure, but it makes me think that because there was he had a niece and she dealt with cerebral palsy. That's how you say it. So being that she cannot walk or anything like that, the abuse that I feel like maybe could have taken the toll on her, because I wasn't the only child in the household. I wasn't the only girl child in the household. So I'm more than sure. I mean, I might be going too far fetched, but I'm more than sure.
That was the last time I ever saw those people. The relationship with my mom's boyfriend didn't last long either. And I never saw those people again, him nor the family.
We had to go to court and stuff like that. And it was my senior year that we went to court. And I didn't actually have to go to court and say anything, thank God. Because this person took a plea deal, and they're doing 38 years right now. And yeah, 2 charges of sexual assault with a child, and then other charges that had something to do with indecent exposure with the child.
Any
And
of these charges brought on by your experience?
so there were 1 charge that they got from me for aggravated assault on a aggravated sexual assault on a minor.
The prevalent abuser that I know, the ones that, like I said, were my neighbors, um, I actually kept in contact with them. We grew up over the years or whatever the case may be. But I know one became a pastor, and changed his life around, thank God, and I couldn't have wanted it any other way. That's beautiful if you ask me. And the relative, he's just living and thriving. Had kids after that and just kind of kept on living life, and I, realistically, that's what tends to happen in this world. In the celebrity world, sometimes you get justice, sometimes you don't. But in real world, sometimes you don't get counseling. Sometimes you still have to see that person and have to keep it pushing, and that's basically what I had to do. I, had to continue to see this person at holidays, to hug this person, to, continue to live life, and continue to kind of battle the whole stigma that I had placed on me because of the stuff that I went through. It wasn't because of the stuff I went through. It was because of stuff I went through, if that makes sense. And I, continue to get the labels, and continue to get those things. And I had to continue to try my best to rise above it, and I'm to this day still are trying to rise above what people have to say about me. But yeah.
I struggled a lot with anxiety, depression. I struggle with being comfortable in front of other men. I struggle with talking in front of other people, because, especially other men, because my voice is not as deep as theirs. So I struggle with that. I struggle with same sexual experiences. I struggle with family members disowning me. I struggle with just that stigma of of being a tattletale, or telling my business, things like that really hurt me. But most of all, the best part about this the best part about the change that made in me was it made me stronger, and it made me not want to get involved in a lot of things that I was involved with before. And it made me know that God was loving, and that He's forgiving, and that no matter what sin you do, that God is forgiving, and He's an everlasting changing God.
I am like I'm a hawk when it comes to my children, and even my stepson. I'm just mommy hawk. And I don't know, maybe that's normal for some parents, but like, I talk to my daughter. When my son gets of age, I'm going to talk to him and let him know how valuable he is and how valuable women are. It starts with me, because I went through my sexual abuse. It makes me look at even relative relationships sideways, and tend to talk to my daughter a lot more, so we can open up a dialect even at the tender age of 5, because that's when things started for me. I talk to her, let her know what is inappropriate touching, what is your safe zone, what is your privacy, and what's not acceptable, and the things that you see and things that you tolerate, her body parts and things of that nature, stuff that my mom didn't do, my parents didn't do at that age. Because I mean, not to say that it was wrong, but it's like that's not something you would think about, that you have to be talking to. But because I know and I went through it, um I'm doing things differently because of it, and it just makes me be a little more leery about things, and it's because of what I went through. And to be honest with you, and it sounds morbid, I'm appreciative that I was able to experience that, because you have some people that have not, and so they don't get it. They don't get it, and until you do, unfortunately, until you do, you have no idea.
I'm more protected with my children. I don't want you going, like, it's to a phobia type of situation, where I don't want you around this type of people, or I don't want you around it. If I feel any uneasiness with speaking to the parent at the time, or speaking to, meeting the parent or meeting their relatives, I'm going to feel some type of way. So, and I rarely let my daughter go anywhere. And that's just like, even with cousins, like they have to literally call me, my aunts call me, is it okay for her to go here? Because y'all know I will flip, so don't take her nowhere that I didn't even give permission for her to go to. Because the way y'all watch y'all kids, I don't know how y'all watch y'all kids like I watch mine. So
it made me not want to be around boys. It made me not want to, have boys, because I would talk on the phone with guys. I would like friend zone them because I had trust issues. I didn't want anybody to come near me, touch me, anything like that. I lost my virginity. I was almost 18 when that happened. So, yeah, it made me more, like I said, reserved. Even to this day, I still don't like to be touched in a certain way. Like, don't rough me up, don't grab me a certain way. I don't do that to me because it triggers. So.
I feel like now I get the chance to actually bring it to light. I can't talk to you because you're deceased. So I'm going to shed a little light on it because I want the world to see what type of corruption or what type of people that's in the world nowadays, and to signs to look out for, and this and that and the other.
So what made me courageous about speaking up about my story is because I wanted to share with other people that you can come out of it. I mean, no matter what you're experiencing, no matter what you're facing, God can deliver you out of any situation. And if He delivered me and changed my life, I'm sure that He can change anyone else's. And that if you are experiencing, or you feel like your children are experiencing this, share this video with them, and hopefully they can be comfortable enough to tell you, so that their time can start back and not as late as my time started.
Well, I just want everyone to know, whoever's out there, man, woman, little boy, girl, to tell their story, to know that it's, number one, not your fault. I'm coming out with mine because I'm not ashamed. I have accomplished so many things in life, and God has brought me through so many things that I'm able to sit here today with bravery to, speak my truth and to tell my story that, hey, it happened to me, but it doesn't have to be you. You don't have to be what happened to you. You don't have to succumb to the things that happened to you as a child. So many times, especially in the Black community, we feel that we really have, how can I put this, a disadvantage. We have a disadvantage as the Black community in itself, and then to be harmed by someone that you trust is just trauma on top of trauma. And a lot of people don't recover, but it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of getting to know yourself for who you really are, because you are not what happened to you. So I just want to encourage everyone to please seek counseling, seek a therapist, get you a prayer life, get somewhere where the word is flowing, so that you can be made whole, and you can live a prosperous and live your best life, because you don't want anything to hinder you. It's hard enough out here for a Black person as it is. But we want to make sure that we take the necessary steps to do our own inner healing, so that we can flourish on the outside as well.
What made me so courageous and tell my story now, to be honest with you, I feel like it's well overdue. I feel like it's well overdue. It was like a nudging, if you will. God was telling me that this was something that should have came out a long time ago, but it was actually a situation, unfortunately, that happened. And God was like, now, I need you to act now. I put the call out, and God truly answered. And so, me, along with Rutanya Sellers and, Rick and Shay, and, we decided to do this project, and I am elated, to say the least, that I can actually share this platform and say that I'm not alone, but I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. And so I just feel like it's time. And you get that stigma where people are saying, well, why now? Why not now, for one? And then for two, who are you to tell me when I'm ready enough, or when I should be telling my story because you would when you would. But the thing is that, again, until you've been in that situation, you can't say how you would handle that situation. You may say you would do it like this, and then it happens and you do something totally different, you know? So I just think now is the time, because God said now is the time, you know? So what's keeping you?
My kids, my business, me as a business owner, a support group, supportive people around me, being able to speak my mind now, and to not be afraid to speak or be shy of speaking my mind. Because I was young at that moment. And so everyone, back then is everything swept under the rug or keep it on the hush. Oh, don't make the family look bad. So no, I'm going to speak how I feel. That's how I feel. And I've always been that way. So even with family functions now, I rarely go because I'm going to be the one to speak my mind. So
all those things combined, because I practice what I preach. I actually do therapy at least twice a month. And I just started that this year due to the pandemic, and it's so much. This pandemic has brought a lot of things out of a lot of people, good and bad. And so this was just one of the things where everybody had to sit down and face themselves, and unlocking those things that have been trapped in for so long, for decades, for centuries sometimes. And go to therapy. It's okay to talk to someone that's non-biased, that doesn't know you personally, where you can get it all out and they can give you their professional opinion. And then I have a prayer life. I am definitely an intercessor. I not only pray for myself, but I pray for others. So I have a prayer life, and I have a relationship with the Father. So with those things combined, God has allowed me to trudge through the things, my past, and being, touched as a young girl, being verbally and physically assaulted by my own mother, being abandoned by my dad, that type of things. God had to pull those things up out of me so that I can be made whole, so that I can move forward and proceed with the things He has called for me to do in my life.
What's keeping me right now is Christ is keeping me first and foremost, and being active in church, and my loving wife and my beautiful children, and work, and just being able to share my testimony and things like that.
The Lord. It's the Lord, my husband, my kids, my family. But strongly the Lord. Like, until I found Him, my world was just, it was all over the place. But seriously, until I found Him, and then I know it's so cliche because that's what you hear, oh, the Lord, but no, the Lord. Seriously, because I don't think, if I didn't have the Lord on my side, I don't think I would have gotten this strong. I mean, gotten this far, to say the least, because it could have took me out. And a lot of things that I experienced in my life could have took me out, but by the grace of God, I'm still standing. And so I would say the Lord, my husband, and my children. Absolutely. So with that being said, how's life for you now?
it's beautiful now, since I'm able to heal, and I'm healing still. So it's beautiful, and it's kind of a catch-22 thing with my mom, because I stated that I resented her a lot, and to a certain extent I feel I resent her a little bit still, but not as much. And I feel obligated sometimes, because I do take care of my mom. I care for her dearly, and I love her dearly. It's just that, near that time, Mom, come on, you could have been more protective of me. I'm the only daughter, so I feel like you could have been more protective.
Well, now life is amazing. Life is amazing. I have a beautiful baby girl. She'll be 4 years old next month in October, so I'm excited about that. It's COVID, so we don't know what we're gonna do, Jesus. But yeah, I'm excited about celebrating her 4th birthday. She's such a blessing to me. Right now, I have recently launched my ministry alongside of my business as well. So I go on Facebook Live, and I pretty much deliver the word of God the way that He gave it to me. As I told you, stated before in one of the previous questions, I'm a writer. So in my prayer time, I just listen to the Father, and I write down the things that He tells me, or that He releases to me during my prayer time, and I release it to the people on my broadcast Saturday night on Facebook Live. Yeah, the plug.
Plug that in.
And also, I have just recently launched my lipstick and my lash collection, Supernatural, and I have them on today.
Awesome.
Very busy between work and taking care of my family, spending a lot of quality time with my kin folks, just helping my dad out a lot.
Busy. Okay, child. Sister's booked and busy. Now I'm just playing, but no. Life for me is happy. Life for me is happy. I found a man that loves me, that adores me. Married, going on 5 years, 6 years together. I found somebody who loves me, who's willing to work with me, who gave me kids. Like, can you believe that? He trusted me with his life, literally, because that's half. Now, but yeah, happy. I'm really happy. I have more happier days than none. And just yeah, just doing different projects and just, living life, meeting new people, and just dealing with life. So life for me is great. It's great. If you could tell that abused child that you were back then anything, what would it be?
It's not your fault. It's not. It's not your fault. Don't blame yourself. Don't beat yourself down, because a lot of times I did that. And then, like, even with growing up with school, I would feel like I'm not too much of the world, or with the popular kids. I've never been popular, so I'm like, don't beat yourself up about that, because it's a lot that's weighing on you as a kid that others don't know about. So don't beat yourself up.
I would encourage myself and say that trouble won't last always, and this too shall pass. And one day you're going to be able to get past this, and God is going to deliver you out of it.
Don't regret saying something. Don't regret it, because for a long time I have regretted it. Like, why did I even say anything? You feel like my life is going even more crazier since I told. Don't regret saying anything, because it could have escalated. It could have went to the point of him trying to penetrate me, instead of the molesting. He probably could have full on raped me, So don't regret saying something. You're brave. You're loved. You're beautiful. And you are a fighter. So that's what I would have said to myself. I didn't think I was gonna cry. I did not think I was gonna cry on it.
Well,
Yeah.
you are brave.
Yes.
You are beautiful.
Yes. Beautiful. Ooh. There's freedom when you say so. And so I'm so grateful for that.
I have no idea. You are going to live past this. And I say that because I feel as though I have lived past my abuse. Because when something still hurts you because you still cry about it. Or, and I can talk and tell this story to whoever. I can tell it to the abuser, okay, abusers, okay, and be like, look, it is what it is. Let's move forward. You're gonna live past this. You're gonna grow past this. You're going to prosper past this. You're going to be strong, and it's not your fault. It was not your fault. It don't matter if you, whatever you felt like you did, it was not your fault. You didn't deserve it. And God has the best revenge. Okay. At the very end of the day, God has the best revenge, and life has a way of dealing out the things that people deserve. You don't have to do nothing but keep living. Okay.
It's your story. Can't nobody take that away from you. Just like education and, well, knowledge is your knowledge is something that you can't take away from anybody. So I feel like it's your story. Tell it like it is.
I mean, you have to say something because it's going to start the process of your healing. If you say something, very well may stop. And if it's someone that's in your home, like a parent, because that happens, or someone that is always over, it's best that you say something. It's best that you say something. Be courageous. It's for the benefit of yourself in the long run. Be courageous. Don't let anybody make you feel so fearful that you can't say anything.
Without no boundaries, no restrictions, no nothing, because you're gonna regret it later on in life. I'm 35, so I'm telling my story now. That's years ago. So don't wait to the last moment, because the healing starts like as soon as you just let it go.
It's for the best for all parties involved that you say something, because that can put a stop to that person eventually touching someone else. So I think that everybody should say something, even if it's embarrassing, even if it's too painful to talk about. It's best to get it out than keep it in.
Find someone that you're trustworthy of, and someone that you can confide in, and share your story and let all the pain out and do whatever you got to do, because as long as it's inside of you, you're going to live with it. But when you let it out, then you'll feel much better.
And it's because it's so much shame attached to that, to the victim in itself. It's so much shame because you feel like, well, maybe I did do something. Maybe I am to blame. Maybe it was my fault. But it's not. It's not. It's not the victim's fault. It's the predator's fault. And it doesn't matter if it takes 50 years to come out. That is that person's story. That is that person's testimony. That is what that person needs to do, no matter when, for them to be free. So because we can go on through life working, marrying, having children, starting our businesses, flourishing, but then it's going to pop up. It's going to come out one way or another. And sometimes it comes out in the weirdest ways. You don't even know. You think you're upset about this one thing, but really it's the trauma from your past. So whenever the time comes for whoever, whether you 7 years old or 60 years old, it needs to come out. It's for the freedom of you, that inner you and the current you.
Not only have it happened to you, but it happened to me.
It's time out. You stand bold, and know that you're not alone. You're clearly not alone, and that to whom much is given, much is required. And I never understood that. But I do now, because everybody has not been abused. I remember having a conversation with my mom, and she was just like, I just can't relate, and you have that. You have some people that just can't relate to sexual abuse. They can relate to every other thing else but that. And just like I experienced stillborn, a lot of people have not. My husband had one healthy son when I met him and didn't have any other experiences, so it seems that we have common ground on it, some things that we don't. And those things that we don't have common ground on, we need to educate those that are not. And that opens up dialect, And so I feel as though that if you have been abused, I'm here speaking to you now and telling you, so have I. But it's life after, a traumatic situation. I am living proof of it. I'm living proof of it, that you can live past sexual abuse. And find someone that you trust to talk to and let them know, and seek help. It's when you don't seek help, and not everybody is afforded the opportunity to invest on themselves by getting therapy. But some insurance cover it. But if not, really get you a good Christian based, word based church, and seek help through, the pastor. And I know, us Black people as a community, we tend to want to lean on Jesus when that's great. But the word of God says faith without works is dead. It's great to have the faith, but you got to put some work behind it. And sometimes that work is therapy, is doing the exercises and the work in which it takes to build the whole person. So I would say, do it. Do the work.
Our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ was the only way that we were able to get through this, and you can too. If you have not yet given your life to the Most High by accepting the blood sacrifice of the Paschal Lamb, Yehoshua HaMashiach, which is our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, which was shed on the cross for the redemption of sins, the time to do so is now, right now.